Snow fell like endless white whispers from the heavens, coating the silent streets in a frozen stillness. The street lamps glowed faintly in the distance, their orbs of light blurred by the falling flakes. The world seemed hushed, as though holding its breath, and in the middle of this frigid silence sat a girl in a thin, pale dress. Her bare skin touched the snow, her arms drawn tightly around her knees as if trying to hold herself together before the night swallowed her whole. Her name was Alara. She hadn't intended to end up here, alone at a bus stop on the edge of nowhere, her dress soaked through with snow, her feet numb and raw. But life has a way of cornering you until escape feels like the only option. The two men stood several steps away, watching her. Their black coats stood out starkly against the white of the snow, their eyes unreadable in the dim glow of the lamps. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, carried an air of silent authority. The other was leaner, his presence quieter but more unsettling in its stillness. Between them, dangling on a string tied to the roof of the bus shelter, hung a small paper bag. It swayed slightly in the winter wind, as if mocking her with a cruel, cryptic message. Inside the bag, Alara knew, was what they had promised her. Not freedom, not safety, just the possibility of survival. A small ration, perhaps food, maybe medicine. Something her body cried out for after days of running, hiding, and freezing. But it wasn't just about the contents. It was about the test. That bag wasn't placed there by accident, it was a deliberate trap, a cruel game designed to see how far she would go. Alara had stumbled into their world months ago, when she ran away from the home she once thought was safe. Her father's debts had swallowed their lives whole, dragging them into the hands of men like the ones standing before her. When he disappeared, leaving her with nothing but empty promises and unpaid loans, they came for her instead. She had been 17 when the visits began, when the knocks on the door grew louder, when shadows started following her down streets. Now she was 19, and the weight of those 2 years had aged her beyond recognition. She pressed her forehead against her knees, shutting her eyes, letting the snow sting her face. If she focused on the pain of the cold, she could ignore their eyes. She could pretend she was alone. But the crunch of boots on snow reminded her she wasn't. The taller man stepped forward, his breath visible in the icy air. "You can take it," he said, his voice low but cutting through the silence. "It's yours, if you want it. No one's stopping you." Alara lifted her head slightly, her lips pale and trembling. "And what happens when I do?" she asked, her voice hoarse. He smiled faintly. "Then we see what happens next. It was always like this. Nothing they offered came without a price. They wanted to see her choices, to measure how far desperation could bend a human soul." The leaner man spoke this time, his tone calm, almost clinical. "You're cold, you're weak, you can't last out here. If you want to live, you'll take it. If not," he let the words trail into the storm, as if the snow itself would finish the sentence for him. Alara's hands shook. She wanted to scream at them, to ask why they were doing this, why she had to be the one trapped in their cruel games. But the words stuck in her throat. Deep inside, she already knew the answer, because she was disposable. Because no one else would come looking for her. She remembered the night she ran, the last night she saw her father. He had been drunk, muttering apologies that meant nothing. "You'll be safe, Alara. I'll fix this. Just stay quiet, don't let them see you." But by morning, he was gone, and in his place came men with black coats and calm smiles. The snow thickened. Alara's body was trembling uncontrollably now, her mind caught between the will to survive and the exhaustion of fighting. She stared at the bag swaying gently in the wind. Something about it seemed almost symbolic, like a pendulum counting down her life, daring her to move before time ran out. Her lips parted, and a single word escaped like a broken prayer: "Why?" The taller man tilted his head. "Why what? Why me?" Her voice cracked. "Why are you doing this to me?" For a moment, silence. Then he shrugged. "Because you're here." It was the cruelest answer, because it was the truest. Fate had placed her in their path, and now they controlled her story. Alara closed her eyes. Memories rushed back. The laughter of her younger brother before he died, the warmth of her mother's hands before she passed away, the smell of bread baking in their kitchen before everything crumbled. She thought of the girl she used to be, full of light, full of hope. That girl felt like a ghost now, buried somewhere beneath the snow. The wind howled, and Alara realized that she had to decide. To reach for the bag meant to give them what they wanted, her submission. To refuse meant risking the cold swallowing her whole before the night ended. Either way, they would win. And yet, In that moment, she found a small ember of defiance deep inside. She looked up at them, her eyes raw but steady. "You can watch all you want," she whispered, "but you won't break me." The men exchanged glances, their faces unreadable. The taller one smirked. "We'll see." Snow fell harder, wrapping the night in silence once more. Alara curled tighter against herself, fighting to endure, not just the cold, but the weight of their gaze. She didn't know how much longer she could last, but she knew one thing: she would not let them decide the ending of her story. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes, time blurred when the cold numbed her bones. Alara drifted in and out of awareness, her body on the edge of collapse. Each breath burned her lungs, each heartbeat felt slower than the last. The bag still swayed before her, golden against the silver of the snow. She hated it, hated how it dangled like hope just out of reach, hated how they watched her as if she were some experiment. The leaner man finally stepped closer, his boots crunching the snow until he stood only a few feet away. He crouched, meeting her at eye level. His face was calm, almost kind, but his eyes were sharp as glass. "You don't have to make this harder than it is," he said softly. "You're suffering for nothing. Take it, and you'll live another day. Isn't that what you want?" Alara met his gaze. Living isn't the same as being alive. For the first time, his expression faltered. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe even respect. But then it was gone, replaced by the same cold detachment. The taller man laughed behind him. "She's stubborn. I'll give her that, but stubborn doesn't keep you warm." Alara lowered her head again. She couldn't fight them with strength. But maybe she could fight them with silence, with the refusal to give them the reaction they wanted. She thought of her mother again. Her mother had always told her, "They can take your home, your money, even your body. But they can't touch your spirit unless you let them." Alara clung to those words like a shield, though the cold was breaking through faster than she could resist. Her mind drifted. She saw herself as a child, chasing fireflies in the summer night. She saw her brother's smile. She saw her father before the debts, before the bottles. Somewhere deep inside, she felt a warmth that the snow couldn't touch. The men grew restless. Their test wasn't going the way they expected. She wasn't begging, she wasn't crying, she wasn't reaching for the bag. She was just enduring. Finally, the taller man approached, pulling the bag down from its string. He opened it, showing her the contents: bread, an apple, a small flask of water. He crouched in front of her, holding it out. "Last chance," he said. "Take it, and prove you still want to live. Or stay there, and freeze. Your choice." Alara stared at the food. Her stomach twisted painfully. Every cell in her body screamed at her to grab it, to tear into it, to survive. But then she lifted her eyes to his. And in that moment, she realized something. Survival wasn't just about keeping your heart beating. It was about choosing how to live, even in the face of cruelty. Slowly, she shook her head. The man's smile faded. He dropped the bag into the snow beside her, his voice low with something between anger and admiration. "Then maybe you're stronger than we thought." The two men turned and walked away, their figures swallowed by the storm. Their test was over. Alara sat alone, the snow wrapping her like a shroud. She was weak, exhausted, and half frozen, but her spirit burned quietly within her. She had not bent. She had not broken. With trembling hands, she reached for the bag, not because of them, but because of her. Because she chose to. Because she still wanted to see another dawn, not as their puppet, but as herself. The bread tasted like ash and heaven all at once. The water burned down her throat like fire. She closed her eyes, tears mixing with the snow on her cheeks. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if she could keep running, or if freedom was even possible. But in that frozen night, beneath the weight of the storm, she discovered something stronger than fear. Hope.